Welcome to this video on literary analysis essays. I'm Mrs. Thomas. This video is specifically about conclusion paragraphs. It assumes you've written the rest of your paper, that you're ready to go, you're ready to close it out, and you just need some tips to get that written and know what you're doing. So come along with me. I'll be using some examples from my previous videos in this series, one from introduction paragraphs, one from body paragraphs, and now we're looking at conclusions. Our goal for today: you can write a conclusion to your essay that leaves your reader with a sense of closure and a connection to bigger ideas. In other words, they care about what you had to say and they go walk away from it with a sense of like, oh, okay, I learned something and I have something to take with me moving forward. So here's an overview. If you've never seen this before, it's the two triangles with the body paragraph squeezed in between. This is a typical format for an academic essay. Not all writing is this way. Just know that this is for a typical literary analysis and argument essay. So our introduction is represented by the green triangle that's pointing down. That is where we have a hook, background, and thesis. We need to know where we've been so we know where we need to end. An introduction usually starts out very broad, universal, something anyone can relate to, and by the end of that paragraph we have a specific focus for the paper. We know where you're going, and that's why we have the narrowed part of the triangle. A conclusion, on the other hand, does the opposite. It usually starts out very specific about this paper itself and what you've had to say and how you said it, and then connects back out to something really broad and something that we can take with us that's meaningful. Big must-nots is do not bring up new evidence or arguments in your conclusion. It is a place to wrap things up and leave us with things to think about, but it shouldn't go to the level of starting to now bring up some new argument that you never even addressed.
So our conclusion, we actually write in the order that it's presented in, unlike how I teach kids to write intros. Because at this point, you should know all your information and what you argued, and this should be kind of the easiest part. The hardest thing is to keep from repeating yourself too much or feeling like you're doing that. So we want to kind of restate the thesis, but in a new way. So don't just copy it. Don't just copy it and then move things around or put in different synonyms. That's just lazy work, and it's boring. So ask yourself what the key ideas were in your thesis. If you go back to my introduction paragraph video, I underlined those key terms in my thesis statement. So go ahead, head back to that video if you need to review that. Don't just plunk in synonyms like I said, but see if there are some appropriate words and phrases you could use in your rewording. So again, I say don't just plunk them in, but still consider some other terms that you could use. Try to rephrase, knowing that your reader has just read your whole argument. They've read your whole interpretation, so don't treat them like they're stupid either. You need to connect everything together. How do all these component parts relate? What's our big takeaway? What's the big interpretation? Here are my examples for my essay on Clack the Rattlebag by Neil Gaiman. So on the left is my thesis statement that's in my introduction, and on the right is my restate, how I'm starting off my conclusion. Now, I actually kind of am tricky, and I kind of did a summation of my body paragraphs at the same time, which is actually the next step. But you can see that I took the ideas from the thesis and put them into the restatement. So my thesis said that Gaiman's clever dialogue, foreshadowing, and telling details weave together to create a mysterious setting, which highlights a warning about how sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones we would least suspect. So my restate at the end is a way to like tie all the loose ends together that I just argued in my paper and proved. So here's what I say. In the end, the narrator could no longer resist because he is too far into the click-clack's grasp, all because he fell for its mask of innocence. Gaiman's descriptions, dialogue, and contrasting diction also bring us as readers into the clutches of the creature, following the narrator, however tentatively, towards the lair and tricked by the illusion. So I just took the main concepts of my thesis and restated it, looking back at it in a new way. And that's what you really want to try to do. If you haven't already, then you also want to consider summing up your body paragraphs, the main points that you made. So I kind of did that in my restate, so you can look back at, just go back in this video just to where we just were, and you can see that I kind of summed up what my body paragraphs were about. If you don't know what my body paragraphs were about, go back and look at my video on body paragraphs, and you'll see 2 of them for this essay in there. I actually wrote a 4 body paragraph essay for this example. One trick you can do is look at your topic sentences from your body paragraphs, so those smaller claims, and summarize them together, like as a whole, and how they are working together, how they play off of each other, or what their cumulative effect is. So you might be looking at the development of an idea or a character. You might be looking at how something transforms or a contrast. There's lots of different things that could be going on in your argument. All right, so we're back with our triangles diagram of the essay. So remember, at the end, we want to leave our readers with some reconnect. You wanted to give us a so what and why we should care about your analysis of some piece of literature. Like, who cares? Well, that's because you want to make something universal and relevant. Here are some ideas for reconnecting. I really think it's nice when students reconnect back to their hook or attention getter. And so here are some techniques or tips that you could think about depending on which type of hook that you wrote about in your introduction. And then consider how you can come back to that idea from the hook or attention getter and talk about it in a new way. So here's some ideas. If you ask thought-provoking questions or rhetorical questions, answer those or give possible answers or reflections on that question considering what you've just proven. In other words, you're going to maybe give us solutions to those quandaries that you proposed at the beginning of your paper. If you did a startling statement, reflect on how we can see that statement in a new way. Maybe we don't have the knee-jerk reaction to it now that we've read this analysis that gives us a different way of looking at the world or about the complexities of the human experience, that maybe things aren't so cut and dry. Anecdote. If you told us a little story, remind us of the story. Now reflect on its larger meaning and relevancy, or how that story could have changed if those people were aware of these ideas you just explored. Those are all things that you can consider. Now, statistic, I don't usually suggest, like if you saw my video on introductions, hooks and attention getters that use statistics are kind of hard for literary analysis. But you could look at how we can now look at those statistics in a new light or in a new way, or look at them going forward, or maybe some hope in those changes of statistics if the statistics weren't very good. Okay. And then lastly, we have two more. Description. You could take us back to that scene or moment and add more description, which takes us in a new direction or understanding, maybe to some hope on the horizon or reflection on that description and how it would be different now or could be different, or a change in perspective. It really depends what you wrote about. And then lastly, if you did the discussion of a general topic or the history of an issue, write about if things have changed or how we should or could move forward with this issue into the future. All right, let's say you look at your attention getter hook and you're like, I cannot find a way to talk about that again and not sound like I'm repeating myself or have something interesting to say. Well, you need something. So here are some ideas if you can't think of anything else to close out your paper with. One, you could connect to our world today. How does our new understanding of this topic through this story that you've analyzed or poem you analyzed or whatever it was, how does it relate to how we live in our experiences as human beings? Because we're all going through this life together and we all have common experiences, right? So connect it to us somehow, to the human experience. Another idea is maybe a call to action for your reader. Maybe you're going to talk to your audience who read your paper directly and push us to think, feel, or do something moving forward about the topic. What are your hopes in relation to us about that topic? Another one, you could comment on your personal connection to the topic and make it relatable to a larger community after that. So you kind of go back maybe to a different anecdote and then you branch it out to how that would relate to all of us. Two more. Acknowledge the past and the present and anticipate the future regarding your topic. So you kind of cover where we were at, where we're at now, and then our hopes for the future. And that can work really well, especially if you're analyzing a piece of literature from the past. You can look at how things have changed since then and where you hope they will go in the future with those ideas. And lastly, reflect on the key takeaways. That's just more of you reflecting on your thoughts and feelings about it in this larger scheme of things of life. Here's my introduction. Just as a reminder, the full introduction, if you want to know how I wrote it, go look at my video on introductions and I explain on there the different parts to it. But you can look at this, and then right up after this, I'm going to show you the conclusion that mirrors this. All right, here we are with my conclusion, with the green restating the main point, the yellow summing up the body paragraphs, which I kind of fudged, and the green and the yellow for me are kind of blended. And then, of course, there's the pink, which is the reconnecting to the hook or giving relevancy to our lives. You'll note that I also included some clever quotes from the short story. I'm not doing this, though, to make a new point or argument. I'm actually trying to be kind of clever in using Gaiman's words to make them more universal. So I use these descriptions of the creature, and I am now tying it to these people in our world around us that have these illusions of being someone that they're not. And so it's kind of my call to action to be careful or cautious around those things and to pay attention. Thank you for watching my video about conclusions for literary analysis essays. I have many other videos covering the different parts of essays and other techniques. Go check them out on my YouTube channel. If you want many of my resources and want to support my work, go visit my Teachers Pay Teachers page and check out some of those resources I have available for purchase.